Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing very well. This is another tutorial. In this tutorial we will learn how to use Volley, which is the best network library, along with MySQL database. Okay, so open up your app level build.gradle file and add the Volley dependency, and we will also use the recycler view, so add the recycler view dependency, then sync your project. Now open your browser and okay, I will post the link of this GitHub repository. Okay, so you can copy this volley request handler class. Okay, so along with volley, we have to use the volley request handler class. So create a package, name it as store, and within this package create a class, name it as request handler. Now paste the class which we have copied. Okay, so I will also post a link of the Android developer official site about volley and request handler, and there is an explanation which you can read, whether why we need to use a request handler and what this class actually does. Okay, so they also have the code for the request handler class. You can also copy this code from there. Okay, now within the main activity and to on create method, let's just try a simple example how this volley works. Okay, so we have to use string request equals to new string request, and the first parameter is the request method. So request dot method dot get. Okay, so there are different request method. You can use get, delete, post, put, whatever your API requires. Okay, so I will use the get method, and the second parameter is the URL, and the third parameter is the response listener, and the last parameter we need is the error listener. Okay, okay, for a simple URL. Okay, so just trying to I'm just trying to make you realize that how this volley works. So I am using a simple API. Okay, so this API tell us about the different countries within the world. Okay, so we will just use this API, and then later we will develop our own API so that we can work with them. And within the response we have to log the response. Okay, so we can log it here. Okay, so now we need to use the request handler class. So request handler dot get the instance, pass the context, and then add to the request queue your request. Okay, now the last thing we require is the internet permission within the manifest. I have already added the internet permission. If you haven't, then make sure you add this permission. Now run the application. Okay, we will use MySQL database. Okay, so we have to use some backend language to create a connection between the Android and the between the Android application and the MySQL database. Okay, so we have to use an API. The proper word for this thing is API. We have to develop the APIs. Okay, so I have developed a very simple API for this purpose. Make sure you have installed your XAMPP, and then you have to start your XAMPP server, and then make sure within the PHP myadmin you have a database. I have created my database with the name of Android noteApp, and then I have create a table name as notes, and it has three columns. First is the ID, second is the text, and the last column is the timestamp. It tells whether at which time the node was actually created. Okay, and then we have, okay, so this is the dbconnect.php file. In this file we simply define our variables, and then there is a dbconnect file, okay, and there is a connect method which returns the connection, okay, and then I have a db operation files. In this db operation files, in the constructor, we develop the connection with the database, and then there are methods, okay. I have only used four methods. The first is for the creation of node, and second is to get all the nodes, third one is to update the node, and fourth is to delete the node, okay. And then I have you can say an interface, so that we can use these methods in the form of a API, okay. So I have developed add node.php, and it will serve as a gateway to these methods, okay, this class. And then the first parameter we checks is the request method. If the request method is post, and then we check if we have the text value within it, then we add the data to the database. Otherwise we create the errors, or we generates the errors, okay. So the user can know what is he is actually missing. So this is a very simple API. I will also post this whole API onto GitHub, and I will share the link with you, okay. I have used the PHP language. You can use whatever backend language you prefer. Okay, our application is up and running. So copy the log key, open your logcat, paste your log key, and here our log is generated, and this is the same result which we have in our browser, okay. So now we have this result within our application as well. So this is the same result we are getting, okay. And the last thing is we have to use this how to use this API in our application, okay. So this is a very simple example. You have to go to your local host, okay. You have to use go to your localhost.zam, then your Android or your folder, whatever folder you have, and then the subfolder I have as a node, and then here all scripts are present. So I'm using now the first step is of course to read the data from the database. So we use this get all nodes.php, okay. So now the thing is these nodes or these scripts are present onto the local host, but our application is no way connected with the local host, or the application doesn't know about the local host. So we have to make sure that our application can communicate with these APIs. So you have to use your IP address for this, okay. So open your command prompt and type ipconfig, then you will get your IP address if you are connected with the Wi-Fi or with the internet. So you have to make sure that you have an active internet connection, okay. Then copy your internet address, and then instead of localhost paste your internet address and hit the enter, okay. So now we are getting the same response from the database with the IP address, okay. So this is the JSON which our script is generating, and this is of course we are using the get, okay. So the request, if there is no request method, then it is a get request. So it is telling us that we are using invalid request, okay. So in the script we are expecting the post request, but we are using get request, so that's why it is giving us an error. So if I change this method from post to get, okay, so if I change the method from post to gets. Of course, for a while it is not showing us anything, but it is not showing the error actually. Okay. Okay, now in the Android Studio, the first thing we have to do is to check whether our API is working or not. Okay, so we have to use this link into our Android Studio now instead of this URL. Now we have to use our own API here. Okay, so paste it here. Now we got this thing. So now just run the application again, and now create another package, name it as CRUD. Okay, so create a class, empty class, name it as create note. Open the layout of create note and change it to linear layout. Okay, so our application is up and running. Now we can view the logcat in here. Okay, so we have got the results from the database, and this is exactly the result we are expecting from our API. So it's good. First, just import the class, our class. Okay, now okay, so I have to change my style. I have to add a base with it. Okay, so if your preview is not showing anything to you, so you could also check if adding the base to the theme is working for you or not, but in my case it is working for me. Okay, so now I need to add an edit text in here. So ID would be no text, and then input type would be multi text line, and I will give it a padding of 10 dp. Okay, so it looks a bit nice. Now within the create node class, I have to use this edit text. Okay, now we need a menu in here. Now okay, so we have already a main menu in here. We can refactor this menu. We can rename it into create menu, and then we can add an item in here. If you don't have your menu, so go to your res and then create a directory with the name of a menu, and then within menu create your menu resource file. Okay, so the title would be save, and then id would be save, and then show as would be always. Now within the create node we have to inflate this this menu. And then we have to check if save is clicked. Okay, so if r.id.save is equals to item dot get item id, so it means user wants to save the data in the database, so we have to use a volley request in here. Okay, so we will use first we will check if the edit text is empty. So before doing this, we can get the string from the edit text. So node text str equals to node text dot get the string, then get it then the convert it to string and trim it. If it is empty, if text util dot is empty node text str, then we have to generate a toast, and we will okay, then we have to generate the toast, and then we will say please enter something, and then the toast length would be short, and then we need to show it. Okay, if the user has type or write something, then we have to upload it to the database. So we have to use the string request. A request equals to new string request. Okay, so the first parameter would be the request dot method, and the method would be post, and then the second parameter would be the URL. Okay, so in this case our URL now would be, let me check the name of class, it is add node. Okay, so our URL would be this now. Okay, it's working nice. So now we need this URL. We have to post our data to this URL. Or instead of doing this, we can create a class within the storeroom, and it would be a better way. Okay, so we have to use a storeroom class, and then we will create a string, and we will name it as base URL. Okay, so the common URLs for all the nodes. So like here it is common, this part of URL is common within all the URL, so we will name it as a based URL. Now make sure this is public and this is static, so that we can access this string without using the object of the class. Okay, so now we will say storeroom dot base URL plus along with the base URL we have to use add node.php. Okay, and then the second or the third parameter is the response listener, and then the last parameter is the error listener. Okay, now we need to pass the value along with this request. Okay, so that the value can be stored within the database. So for that we have to use there is a method to pass the value to the volley request. Okay, so you have to come out of these brackets. Okay, so the bracket of this string request, it is ending here. Okay, so before the semicolon you have to put these two curly brackets, and then there is a method get params. You just need to use this method. Okay, so this method actually returns the data, or sends the data in the form of a map. So we have to use a map in here. Okay, so we have to use a map, and we will the map the both key and value of the map data type will be string. So we will say that params equals to new map. Okay, or instead of new map we will use the hash map. Okay, now we need to put our values within this map. Okay, so we have to put map dot put, and the first thing is the key. So the key is text, and its value would be the node text string. Okay, and if there are other parameters you want to pass in your API or in some other application, you can simply use another parents.put method. Okay, so now we need to return, instead of this super.getParams, we need to return our the object or the our maps variable. Okay, so now we are good to go this with this insertion method. Now we need to add this request to the queue. Okay, so now we need to come out of all these brackets. So now we need to use the request handler class. First we have to get the instance, and then we need to add to queue this request. Okay, now within our main menu, our main activity, we need to use a menu. Okay, here, so activity main. Okay, so we have a floating action button. So instead of adding a menu, we can add on click listener to this floating action button. So whenever it is clicked, we will start the create node activity. Okay, so we will say that create node. This will be our method name within the Java file, and then I will change this IC dialog to IC input add. I believe this is the keyword. So within this main activity, now we do not need this menu. Okay, so we need to add a method public void create node, and within this create node we have to pass the view as a parameter, and then we have to start the activity. So with new intent from this context to create node dot class. Okay, so now we do not need this request here, and in the last within this XML we haven't changed this into hint, so we will say that enter your node. Okay, so now hit the run button. Okay, now we can use a recycler view within this activity main. So open the content of activity main. Actually this is my this is not empty activity this time I'm using. This is a blank activity I believe I'm using. So now we need to use the recycler view. So that's why I have two main XML. First one is the activity main and the other is content main. Okay, so our activity is running. Now let's just check this operation. So click on this. So node application, enter your node. So let's add some value from device. Now click on this save button. Okay, now we haven't used the response or error listener, so we do not know whether the value is saved or not, so we have to manually check the database. So here we okay, so we have a value, some value from device, so it means our database or our scripts are running. So but we have to make use of these responses. Okay, so first I will copy this toast from here, and if I receive if this method is called, then it means our node is saved or our operation is successful. So we will say that node saved, and then we do not need this activity, so we will finish it. But if there is an error, then we will say error, and then we will also show the error. Okay, now within this activity main, content of main, we have to use the recycler view. So match parent, and let's say match the parent, and ID would be res view. So now in the main activity we have to use this recycler view. Okay, and then I have to set the layout manager. It would be new linear layout manager. Now we need the adapter for this. So let's just create an adapter. Create the package, name it as adapters, and within it create a class, name it as main act adapter or whatever name you want to give it. Okay, so extend the recycler view dot adapter, and then mention your views holder class. So I will say that views holder class. Now we need to implement the method, and we need to create this class. So public class views holder, and then we need to extend the recycler view dot view holder class, and then we need to create the constructor for it. Okay, so now we can use this uh, adapter within our main activity class. So I will say that adopt object, and then adopt object equals to new main act adapter. Okay, then we can set this adapter to the recycler view. So this is adopt object. Now we need to read the data from the database, so we have to use the string volley string request. Okay, so I will create a method reader, and then within this method we will use the string. Okay, so string request, so string request equals to new string request. The request method, I don't know, request method is get, so we have to use the request method as get, and then the URL would be first, it is the base URL from storeroom. Okay, it is D here, and then we have to add get all nodes.php. This is the file name. Okay, and then in the last we have response, new response listener, and then we need to use the new error listener. Okay, so now we need to add this request to the request queue. Add this request. So if in case if we received any error, so we will generate toast, and we will say some error occur while reading data, and we can show the error message. Toast length would be long, and then we just need to show it. Okay, so there is some issue. Okay, it's a problem. Okay, so now we have it. Okay, so if we do not receive any error, or if the operation is successful, then we will, then this on a response method will be called, and then we will receive the data, but we will receive the data in the form of a JSON. Okay, so remember we are encoding the JSON, the data into the JSON form, so we will receive the data in the form of a JSON. I can show you. Okay, so here first we have the JSON array. Okay, so, this square bracket represents the array. So we have a JSON array, and then within this JSON array we have objects. Okay, we have two objects for a while. Okay, so first we need to, okay, so now we need to use JSON in here. So we have to use the try catch. So in case if any exception occur, we will log the exception instead of toasting it. So we will log it out. Okay, now we need to use a JSON. So we have to use JSON object, we will name it as main JSON equals to uh, okay, so we will okay, so we have to use JSON array. Okay, so because the data would be the first thing would be the JSON array. So let's try. In case we received any error, we will look into it. So we have to pass the response in here. Okay, then we have to use for loop. Okay, so we have to iterate through this JSON array. So I is less than JSON array dot length, and then we have to there are JSON objects within this array, so we have to use JSON object method here. So JSON object equals to JSON array dot get JSON object at I. Okay, now within this JSON object, okay, so let me check. Okay, so we have ID and these. Okay, so all of these values are in the form of a string. Okay, so we have to get these values in the form of a string. So we will say JSON object dot get a string, get the string from this JSON object, and let's say get the text. Okay, and then we will log this value from here. Say that let's just simply store it in temp, then we can log this temp in here. Okay, run the application. Okay, so now we need to create a model so that we can store our we can store the value in a better way. So create a package name as model, then create create a Java class, name it as node model, and then okay, then we need first is ID, which is in the form of a string. Second, okay, so instead of string, let's just use in. Okay, so it would be, we will convert the value of a string, then the string, and then we have text, and then we will use long, and then say this is time temp. Okay, now okay, so our application is up and running. Okay, so copy this log key, open the logcat, and check the values. So there is nothing yet. Okay, let's just run this application again. Okay, so we are not receiving anything. Okay, so we haven't called this method, so first we have to call this method somewhere, let's say here, otherwise we will not receive any value. Okay, so there is a little issue in our API. Okay, so the issue is if uh, we cannot determine whether our request is successful or not. Okay, so uh, like there is no parameter, or there is no variable at which we can guess our request is successful or not. So what we have to do is that we have to copy this response error from here. Okay, so in case our parameter is missing or a value invalid request, then there is a response error. But if the request is successful, then we also have to generate a response error. Okay, so then we will say a response error, then we will say there is no error. Okay, so what we have to do is that we have to check this value. Okay, within this JSON array we have to check this value like this way. We will check this value if error, let's say if there is error, then we will say we will generate the error for the user, in the else part, we will receive our value and then store it in the model. Okay, so we have to use this error as well. So now our application is up. Okay, so here we have these values from the server. Okay, so now we are getting perfectly these values. So now we just need to refresh the browser, and we are not receiving anything. Okay, so we added this response into our update area. We have to put it into this get all known area. Okay, so now it is not looking good. So let's say we name it as data. So now we have a JSON object. Okay, so now our structure is very changed. Now we have a JSON object name as data, and then within this JSON object we have a JSON array, and then we have another JSON object name as error. Okay, so now we have to change structure here as well. Now we are not receiving JSON array as a main thing. Okay, so we have to change it into JSON object. First we are receiving the JSON object, and we will name it as main JSON equals to new JSON object. We will pass the response, and then within this JSON object we have to check if there is any error or not. Okay, so we will check if main JSON dot get string. Okay, so that string name as error, if that string is okay, so required boolean. Okay, so main JSON dot get string, instead of get string let's say get boolean. Okay, so this is present in the form of a boolean true false, so we have to use boolean. If that boolean is returning as a true, then if will call, so it means there is an error. If return value is false, then this if will not be called, so means a value will be there would be no error. Okay, so if there is an error, then we have to generate a toast. So we will generate a toast, and let's say some error occur at database, and then duration is long, so that we can see this toast. And then if we are successful, then we need to get this JSON object from this okay, so we need to get this JSON array from the JSON object. So we will say use JSON array. JSON array equals to new JSON array, and this array is present within this main JSON dot get JSON array, and then the JSON array name is data. Okay, what's the issue? Let's change this get string. Okay, so it's the error is gone. We just changed this into string. Let's see if this works or not. So now we need to use this for loop in here. So we have to use int I is equals to 0, I is less than JSON array dot length. Then we have to increment the I, and now we need to create the model. So we have to use node model here. So we will say node model equals to new node model. Okay, so we have to add the constructor within here. Okay, so now we need the constructor. Okay, sorry, and then we need the getter method for all the values. Okay, Now we are good to go. So now we need to pass the value within this constructor, and it is first is id. Okay, so now we need to use integer dot pass the in, then we will get this value from json array dot get the string, and the string is named with id. The second value is json array dot get string, and the string is text. Okay, and the last value we have to use is a uh, long dot parse long, and then we have to use json array dot get the string, and the string name would be timestamp. Okay, okay, so there is some issue. What's the issue? Okay, so we are using this json array directly, so we have to use it like this way. First we have to get the json object from this json array. Okay, and then within this json object our values will be present, so we cannot use this json array directly. But okay, so we have to use it like this way. And the last we have to use here. Now check this node model class. Okay, so it is expecting a string, then it is okay, so it is expecting a string. Why there is an error? Json array dot get json object at I, then we just need to get the string out of here. So what's this really issue? Okay, so this bracket is ending here, and then okay, so there the issue with the brackets. Okay, now we need to use a model array list. Okay, so that we can store this model within the array list. So create the array list with the node model, name it as node models, and then we have to initialize this array here. Okay, and then in the last we have to add these models into this array list. Okay, so add the model here. Okay, then whenever we add the model we have to notify the data set change. Okay, and then we within this main act adapter we have to use this array list here as well. So create an array list with the name of models, let's say. Now we need to create the constructor so that we can get this value from our main activity. So now we need to add these two lines below these lines. Okay, so we need to pass this node model array list here. Okay, now within this main adapter, so now we need layout, so we will have to use single node row here. Okay, so let me just change it to a linear layout. Now add a text view here, rep content, and then just give it a text id of no text. Okay, and then we need to, and then we need another text view, and we will name it as node. Okay, and then give the orientation of vertically here. So now we in this main adapter we have to create our view. So we need to create the view equals to layout inflator dot from, so view group dot get the context, and then inflate it or dot layout. Okay, first import this R class, and then the single node row. The second parameter would be null. Now we need to set the parent layout, the layout params. So new recycler view layout params. First param would be match parent, and then the second would be rep content. Okay, so now we need to create the object of a view holder. So return new view holders object class, and we need to pass the view. Okay, now within this on bind view holder we have to, okay, so first we need these two text views from our XML file in here. So have to use a node text, and the second one is node date. Okay, so now we need to use node text view, then item view, find the ID, and then we need to bind the values to these views. Okay, so holder dot, okay, so this is views holder class dot node text dot set up text. So we will get this text from our model, and the text would be this. And the second, okay, so first we need to create, okay, so let's just create it into this storeroom class. We need a date method here. Okay, so public static string get formatted date. Let's say this is our method. There are some typos issue. Okay, just leave them. So now we need to return new simple date format. Okay, and then we need to pass the pattern. So let's say the pattern is day name, then day, then month, and then year, then at, hours, minute, am, pm. That dot format, we will pass the value, and we will receive this value from here. Okay, so now we need to use this method into our adapter class. So now this time we have to use the node date, and then we have to get the timestamp, and then we need to use this storeroom class to get the formatted date. We just need to add a bracket. Okay, now we need to return the models dot size. So we are good to go. Okay, so test the application. Now within this main activity adapter, create a context. Okay, and then give this let's just complete this as context. Now give it a value, context equals to item view dot get the context. Okay, so our application is up and running. So let's see what we have. Okay, there is nothing, so means we must have got some exception in here. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so there is an exception, and it says that there is no value for timestamp. So okay, so the value in the database or the column name is time, but we are expecting the timestamp, so that's why we got the error. So we need to change it into time. Now run the application again. Okay, so within this db operation, okay, so we have values in our class. Okay, so we have the values from the database. So That's cool. Now, I mean, within this main act adapter or before, first we have to, let's just give it some background so that we can view each node. Now we have to cut them and paste them here, so give it a margin, let's say 10 dp, and give it an orientation of vertical, and now give it a background, so let's say background of this color. Yes, it is good. Let's try some other color. If any luck we found any. Okay, so these are bad colors. Go to your color.xml and try to add a light color. Okay, so I like these light colors, so now I will paste them here. Okay, so now let's just give it a gravity towards the right side, and then let's just have another texture and then give it a height of 2 dp, and just let's just give it a background of so that these are separated from each other like this way. Okay, now let's just give it 1.5. Okay, so run your application again. Okay, within this main act adapter, we have to implement the on click listener onto this view. So view holder class dot item view. Okay, so we are not receiving the item view dot set on click listener. Okay, so let's just go with the long clicks listener, and then if the user holds the text view for a longer period of time, then we have to generate the alert dialog. We will ask the user whether he wants to delete this node or not. Okay, so we have to create this alert dialog, and then we need to pass the context, then box dot set message. So message would be delete this node, and then box dot set positive button would be delete new dialog interface dot on click, and then box dot set the negative button, and negative button would be cancel, so new dialog dot on click. If the user clicks the cancel button, so we have to dismiss this dialog. Now we need to create this dialog, so box dot create dot show. Okay, so we are good to go. Now if the user clicks on this delete button, then we have to delete this node. Okay, so for deleting this node, we have to use the request, so that we can send the ID of the node that we want to delete. Okay, so within this main act adapter, I'm just going to copy and paste these values. Okay, so now the script will not be add node. Okay, so now the script would be delete node, so we have to use this delete node.php. now there is no get application context, so we have to use our on context. Then we will say that node deleted, and then again we have to change this value into context, and then let me just check. Okay, so within this delete method, we are okay, where is the script? So the method is post, and we are expecting id. Okay, so now we need to get the id from the model, so model dot get at I dot get the id of the node, and so we need to make this I final, and then okay, so it's saying that it requires, let's just change it into integer. Okay, so that we can match the values. Okay, so it is not accepting integer, so let's just use, okay, so we can convert it into string like this way. Okay, so instead of text we have to use id here, and then we have to use the context in here. Okay, so if the node is deleted, okay, so we are good to go. Now we have to implement the simple click listener. Okay, so we hold a class that itemu dot set on click listener. If the user simply clicks the nodes, then we have to show the complete description of the node. So we have to create a class, just name it as view node. Okay, finish this class, and then within this view node we have to use a linear layout first, then set is its orientation as a vertical. Then we need to use the text view, so mesh parent and then wrap content. And then okay, so before doing this, let's just add a linear layout. Okay, match the parent, and then height would be 0 dp, and then height would be 0 dp, and we have to give it a layout weight of 9. So give the layout weight of weight sum 10 to the main layout, and then to the childs 9 and 1. Okay, so 1 here. Now within this 9, first we have to use the scroll view, so that if the text is longer than the screen or the display, then the user is able to scroll the text. Okay, so match parent wrap content, and then of course id would be node text. Okay, now we need the edit text or the text view within this one, and then we have to make sure this is node date. Okay, so let's just give it a background of okay, the background we have added into this single node. Let's just use this one, and give it a padding of 10 dp, and give the whole layout a padding of 10 dp. Okay, now first import the R class, and then we have two text views here. Okay, so we will name it as node text and node date. Then we will accept or we will receive the bundle from the adapter. Okay, so I will name it as unpacker. Okay, so most of the code is same as we have used in our noteApp with the Firebase, so you will find a lot of similarities. Okay, so the basic things are same, we just need to know the logic of how to use the APIs and how to use volleys. Okay, so the basic things are the main things are these are just the basic, so that our application, or so that we can view our these things in a proper way. Okay, so get the intent and then get the extras. Now set the text and get the value from the unpacker, and then okay, so get string, and then unpacker dot get long, and then we have to use the storeroom. Okay, so we need to use the storeroom dot get formatted date, then we need to pass the date here. Okay, now what we need else is we have to pass date here. Now okay, so we are good here, just make it note date. Now we need a menu for here, so in here we also need a menu on create options menu, and then on options selected option, item selected. Okay, so let's just create a menu, name it as view menu, and then we need two items within this view menu. So the first item would be the ID, and the ID, let's say it is delete note, and the title would be delete note, and show as never. Okay, so we want it to always remain in the bottom or in the drop down menu. The second item would be update note, so ID would be update note. Okay, now copy these IDs within this view class. First just inflate this menu, let's say show get menu inflator dot inflate r dot menu dot view menu, and then the second parameter is a menu. Now within this option selected, let's just say selected ID equals to item dot get item ID, and if this selected ID is equals to r dot id dot delete okay, where is view menu? This is not present within the IDs, so we have to put them. Okay, if the ID is a delete, then we have to use the same piece of code there as well. Okay, so we just need to use this code into this user clicks on deletion button. Okay, now we can use the context, so we need to use the application context. Okay, and get the application context. Okay, so now we don't have the models here. Okay, so we have to use unpacker and then get int, and the int would be ID. Okay, and now we need to create the bundle here. So first we have to create the bundle, and let's say bundle pack equals to new bundle, and then we have to set the value. So pack dot put the string, and the string first string would be text, or it is node we are expecting in the other class. So models dot get item at I, and then get the text from that item, and in the second thing is date and then ID. Okay, so date and the last key is ID. So now we need to get the timestamp, and then we need to get the ID, then we need to put the long value, and then put int value here. Okay, now we need to create the intent equals to new intent, and then first value is the context, and then we need to move toward the view node dot class. Okay, and then we need to put this bundle with this intent. Okay, so in this way we will send this data from our main adapter class, our main adapter towards this view node, and when we will click on this the update item of from the menu. Okay, so else the user if the selected id is equals to r.id dot update the node. Okay, then we will pack the data in the same manner. Okay, so we don't have models in here, so we have to use unpacker dot get the string, and the string would be note. The same way we have sent it these values in the previous class, and then we need to get the long value, and then we need to get the string value. Okay, id, and then we need the context here. So we need the update node class, so activity, so we have to create an empty activity. Let's just name it as update node.